The Coyotes demolished the Ducks at the last game of the preseason, and now a bunch of players have been banished to Tucson. Let's talk about it.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Locked On Coyotes, number one daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes. Today's episode brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code Locked On NHL. Get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper terms of use for details. I'm your host, Robyn Matt, on this episode of Locked On Coyotes, alongside Matthew Jacobson. We want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every day. We are free and available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube, the SiriusXM radio app, and ad-free on Amazon Music. Got a great show in today's episode because we're going to talk about the preseason finale, Matthew, of the Arizona Coyotes versus Anaheim Ducks in Tucson, which we went down to the cover and had a fun time.
Yeah, it was actually my first ever hockey game as credentialed media. Funny little side note. I got to be credentialed media for 3 different arena football games. Got recognized for my arena football stuff. I never would have suspected arena football before hockey. Awesome experience to finally cover hockey, though. Seriously, too bad I will not be allowed back because that McBain goal, that backhand pass to McBain, I made a little noise. I had to force my mouth closed there because. It's hard to not be a fan, you know? It's hard to not get excited.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you this. It's, I can never see it as the same way. Whenever I go as a fan, it's hard for me to be a fan because I've seen it through the eyes of media. So I hate to have, brought that on you, but welcome to the world of media, Matthew. It's the way it is, but it's also really awesome because look at this, Matthew. How often can you say, yeah, sure, you can be a fan, but how often can you say that, you get to be real up close and personal on a pretty, frequent basis with Michael Carcone and Andre Tourigny and, other Coyotes players.
Yeah, no, it was weird. As we were doing our little post-game show, I was looking over. I don't know if you guys could tell. I'll go back and watch the show and comment on it. I was staring over at, I think, Matthias Pacelli and Juuso Välimäki. And then a bunch of, I think, the Ducks players were also, exiting through the same hallway. So, it's weird that we're just casually allowed down there. Just, by the players. And they don't care. They're like, yeah, no, they're media. Who cares? They're just chilling. Any other context? I'm just a nobody YouTuber, guys. All right. Any other context? What is this guy doing? Call security.
I don't think you can officially use the term nobody YouTube anymore, Matthew. You've stuck your phone as a recorder in front of Andre Tourigny. So
I also froze up. I was gonna ask him because I have my notepad in my right hand. I'm holding it with the phone with my left hand. I wanted to raise my hand to ask him, hey, I know it's just preseason. I don't want to put too much stock into it, but there's a lot of sloppy penalties. Do you think that needs to get cleaned up and forming bad habits, or just it's a rivalry game for the preseason? It is what it is. And I just froze. I literally just froze.
Look, I will tell you this as someone who has only gotten out of journalism college. Pretty fairly recently, while I was still a student, I faced the same stuff, and I still occasionally will freeze up before asking a question because sometimes I overthink the question, or now it's at the point with overthinking the question. Back when I was still a student, it was kind of a little bit of that starstruck, but also holy crap, I'm here. So like I said, welcome to the arena.
Like Craig and Browner, they're so natural at this. They had. Craig had multiple questions lined up. Browner had multiple questions.
Well, they've been doing it for years. Let's look at it this way. I've done this again enough times where I've been able to ask questions because I know the questions exactly I want to ask going into a thing. As a Tucson Roadrunners reporter, I've got a chance to talk to a lot of Roadrunners players and now Coyotes players. You get used to it. I
sure hope so because I felt like like the odd man, like the ugly duckling. It was weird being allowed that close to Craig Morgan, and he's not looking over his shoulder like, the hell are you doing there,
Yeah.
bud?
Yeah. Well,
Back away.
let's get to a little more of that though. Kind of just get some, any final thoughts, because we've now had about 24 hours to let it settle, let the dust settle on the game. And so a couple other thoughts that maybe you might bring up. Maybe some notes. Maybe you listen back to any to those interviews that we had with Carconi and Tourné, and said, hey, that's something that stuck out. And I think that, it's something we can talk about, because there's a lot of different things a lot of different routes you can go on.
Nope, because I already know with how quiet they were. My phone is pretty awful. I'll have to make sure to actually bring the physical recorder my wife bought for me. I'll have to find it first, but I'll have to bring that next time. But I do want to note this. All right, I think I might have said that it was an O'Brien pass to McBain. It was a Carconi pass, just in case I said that incorrectly. That was just a ridiculous, one-timer, basically from behind the net, essentially backhand pass to McBain. But some of these takeaways are Dumbo looked better than I thought. Because he's had the injury issues and he's getting up there a little bit. I know he's only 29. I get it, but when you start thinking about it from the National Hockey League perspective, it almost feels like 28, 29 is old to an extent with how fast a lot of these kids are. He skated really well. I'm impressed and actually more excited about him as a player as opposed to just a name. Dursey, that that shot had some mustard to it. That and Krause's shot later on in the game. So I want to see a lot more of Dursey goals from the point. Excuse me. And then Logan Cooley, just one more time, reiterate it. The maturity, just the beating the goalie and not, being an idiot about it. He just essentially had that cocky look in his eye, but he's also like, I've been here before. I'm going to do it again. And just skated over to the bench. Like, stuff like that is going to stick out to me because it's just, like I said, the maturity. This kid is 19 years old. I'm not even that mature. I'm almost 30. All right.
I mean, you're right. Look, and I think that's the thing. That's one of the things that is going to help Logan Cooley stand out. I think we just saw, I think I saw it yesterday on a post. I think it was on my way out of the Tucson game. Maybe even it was even before it.
Mm-hmm.
Where it was a post from, I think, someone at NHL Network or some other NHL national writer that said, "Don't be surprised if Logan Cooley wins the Calder Trophy this year."
He will.
And let's remember, FanDuel has Logan Cooley's odds at plus 1,200 to win it. Mm-hmm. That's the third best odds, but Connor Bedard's at minus 120, saying he's favored by a pretty decent amount, almost saying he's gonna get it. Look, if you're looking for a good value pick, that's a good pick right there, because you're just watching what he's been able to do in just the preseason. And yes, like you said in our rapid react, it is just the preseason, so let's not take too much stock in it. Mm-hmm. But it still gives us an idea of what we can see, and we'll probably see a little bit more once opening night comes within coming out later this week.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate the same thing I told Craig. I got to talk to him briefly before I think Carconi came out, where I'm like, look, I don't want to put too much stock into it, but with how what I've seen, 30 goals is seeming less and less unreasonable by the day. I genuinely feel like he can hit it. I'm still going to stand by. I'm not guaranteeing it, but I wouldn't be surprised if the kid hits 30 goals this year. And this is such an exciting time. Have I mentioned that yet, Robyn? Have I reiterated how exciting this is as a Coyotes fan?
I think once or twice.
2-3 times.
2 or 3. Maybe around there. All right. But, anyways, I want to give you maybe any final thought that you had from the game. I guess here's one thing I'll put out. I said it in the rapid react, and I just want to say it again for those that don't listen on YouTube and they listen on, they don't listen on YouTube. They listen on anything else. I want to get it saying done. I love the fact that they're playing preseason games. They're kind of trying to get more preseason games down in Tucson, because it's trying to help the game in Tucson, even though they have the Roadrunners, and two, it allows actual Tucson culture, what Tucson is known for, to be able to put itself on display to a lot more people who maybe don't come down as often from the Valley to say, hey, take it, really embrace the Hispanic heritage, especially because preseason always happens during Hispanic Heritage Month. You get to see the mariachi, you get to see a lot of different things, and I personally enjoy that vibe. As someone with a Latinx heritage, to me that means a lot. So, and also someone that lived in Tucson for 7 years, but that's just an added bit. But I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's a fun atmosphere, and also I made the comment that Tucson is pretty much North Mexico. It's a very heavy Hispanic population. Show you care about the population, and I appreciate that the Roadrunners do that. It's a logical thing to do. That the people that you want to market to, show them they matter. Show them you care.
Exactly. Well, we're going to continue this episode of Locked On Coyotes in just a sec. We are going to get to talking about Dylan Guenther, Maximilian Zuber, as well as a lot of other players who've gotten sent down to Tucson. Some players got called up. We will get to all of that in just a minute. But first, a quick word from our sponsors on today's show. And today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. The NHL season is finally here, where the Vegas Golden Knights reign supreme again. I love the NHL, and I do too. And you do too. And that's why I want to tell you about Sleeper. Sleeper is my go-to platform for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you have the chance to win 100 times your cash on daily fantasy. Sleeper has never been more exciting than it is now. Stars like, Connor McDavid and let's say Cale Makar. Got Logan Cooley coming to the Arizona Coyotes. How more exciting can we get for that? Simply select more or less based on their stats, goals, assists, points, saves, and more. And you heard me, Coyotes fans. Sleeper offers you 100 times payouts. So start paying attention and make the right picks. You can win big. I know Sleeper is one of the places I love to do. I love making daily fantasy picks because, again, I can easily win some. I've gotten some pretty decent money off of it. I'm not going to, disclose exactly what I do, but it is a really fun place to just have some fun in your daily fantasy. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you get up to $100 a match your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. Once again, that's LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleepers in terms of use for details. All right, Matt, let's continue this episode of Locked On Coyotes. As we thank everyone once again for making this show their first listen every day. Let's talk about this final round of roster cuts, because as of the morning that everyone is listening to this episode, the final rosters are due for the regular season. So a lot of decisions had to have been made by the Coyotes for their roster, including the assigning of Dylan Guenther to the Tucson Roadrunners, which got a lot. It's interesting because there's multiple different camps here. There's the camps of people who are head scratching. It's like, oh, I thought Guenther had a good camp, and there's the other ones. You and me and Craig and a lot of the really logical people here are like, yeah, we saw this coming, and this is honestly the best decision for Guenther.
Yeah, let me just clarify for myself. I didn't necessarily think 100% he wouldn't be on the opening night roster, but I also knew his roster spot wasn't guaranteed. And like I said, when we did our realistic expectation series, I expect him to be about 50-50. I also commented on Twitter earlier today that I don't expect him to be in Tucson all season, but also responding to a PHNX Coyotes tweet asking fans for their opinions. It's, you let him dominate the AHL after that brief adjustment period and be 110% ready when it's go time for the NHL. I think it's going to be perfect for his development. And as long as Guenther maintains that chip on his shoulder, because we heard the comments, right? If you pay attention to Craig's reporting, when he got sent down to the WHL last year, he was very ticked off, just to be a little more PG about it. He was very ticked off, and he looked really good. Excellent when he went back to the WHL. If you can have a JJ Mosier effect down in Tucson, where let's say he plays anywhere between 15 to 30 games and forces his way back, there you go. I wouldn't be surprised to see it. Although I am a little confused on how many forwards they have because the official roster shows exactly 12. So I do want to look at the cap friendly for him. But it's they're doing the whole heavy defenseman thing, even though Craig reported that Tournier said a couple of the defensemen were banged up. We just didn't have too much extra context on that, and a couple defensemen got brought up today as well.
We'll get to that in a little bit, though. The Dylan Guenther thing and him getting sent down, like, I think a lot of people, what people need to understand is, yes, he's good, but you want to take a look at, what is best for his long-term development. And with the state of the Coyotes roster right now, it's like as deep as you can get for the personnel that we have. And you don't want to stick Guenther in a space in which you're not making sure he gets the right amount of minutes, and the right amount of and the right kind of style of play. You don't want to stick him around people that's not going to help him develop. That's why going to Tucson, I think, is the best decision. And I think you spend, a significant chunk in Tucson to become essentially like a pseudo superstar in Tucson, because he's really going to prove himself down there. And he's really going to, be that guy, and really, become great. He's good now, but he's going to become great.
Yeah, and it makes the top 6 more dangerous in Tucson. And Tucson is known, all right, full disclosure, ever since I started covering both teams in 2018, 2019, Tucson is pretty infamous for starting off their seasons hot. You'll have a struggle, a lot of mediocrity. Sometimes it tapers off and falls off. Sometimes you still squeak your way into the playoffs. So do not be too hyped when this team starts off very well. But when that success should maintain itself, that's when you should start getting some excitement, because this top 6 should look pretty good. Travis Boyd also got waived. We'll touch on him in a second. So Boyd probably plays somewhere in the middle 6 there. Aku Ratu is coming off a really good season over in Europe. Dylan Guenther. Milos Kellerman was playing about a middle 6 role there. Zach Sanford had a phenomenal training camp. Jan Unique has a lot to prove. Nate Smith is going to have some to prove. So you're already filling out your top 9 there without mentioning Josh Doan and Colin Tyson and a couple other Tucson exclusive players down there. This is going to be a deeper roster. And then when these players start getting called up, so Boyd, I don't know if someone picks him up. They might not. The Coyotes have a bit of a buried penalty on their cap for that. But when guys start getting called up, Tucson is going to have more than enough depth. And I think it's going to benefit them to maintain a little more success, knock on wood, unless 2018-19 repeats itself where Tucson has nobody left because they all got called up to the NHL roster.
100%. I totally agree with that. And I mean, the one thing I will say is there's a major difference between that 2018-19 year and this year, and that is who is in charge.
Not just that, the average age as well. This is a much younger team.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about
much injury mileage.
Yeah, that and management. Management. Big difference, right? So the Coyotes have a higher chance of becoming healthier, so you don't have to worry about that. But also, too, the management knows they very well just are going to make the correct decisions not to suck Tucson dry to hinder development of all the people that are in Tucson for the reason of development.
And on top of that, while I do completely agree the NHL team takes priority, when the NHL team is no longer in playoff contention, I think that needs to flip, because you want to build from within. Tucson's been a consistently good organization overall. I think they only really had 1 or 2 truly bad years so far. I think one was either 2 years ago. Everything's blending together. I am old at this point. But because you want them to have that successful push. You want them to compete in the playoffs. You want these kids to know what it takes to win before they ever skate for your NHL team or before they solidify that full-time NHL roster. So in a scenario like this, where this team will not make the playoffs this year, as fun as it would be, but they're not going to make the playoffs, when it comes down to crunch time, you could probably a couple of waiver claims or call up guys that Tucson doesn't necessarily need, because Tucson's going to need their better players.
Absolutely. And also one more thing, and I'll add on this before we talk about get even more into the show, is I feel like this setup is going to really help Tucson in the long run when it comes getting close to the Calder Cup playoffs, because this is a team that's very well set to actually potentially make a run in the Calder Cup playoffs. You can add a little bit more black aces that they probably have set up, pre-set up, that they know it's going to happen in the Coyotes roster, and boom, you got a nice solid team that can make a deep run in the Calder Cup playoffs. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but they've got the tools for it to happen.
Yeah, the tools are there. Now, whether or not they make that run this year, who knows, but they have a much, much better, more complete roster, and that's not even accounting for the extra players that they have signed and what impact they may or may not have this season.
Absolutely. That's enough of Guenther, though. I know we do got to get to an ad break in a little bit, but I do want to get your thoughts on Maximilian Super getting
Zuba, top four
Tucson.
spot in Tucson. That's it.
I don't think we can underestimate the excitement. Because like you said it, I think everyone was under the impression that this kid was going to get loaned back to Europe, right, to the DEL.
That was
for
the
a
original
while.
plan that was reported. Yeah,
exactly.
The original plan that was reported until Craig Morgan dropped a bomb on us last week.
It's like, well, no, it seems very likely he could actually spend the year in Tucson, which is absolutely huge. And the fact that we're finally seeing it, that is actually confirmed, assigned to the Tucson Roadrunners, I feel like that is another, like I said, another thing that's just going to make things better.
Yeah, again, it's going to be fun.
Anyways, that's it for some of the assignments. We're going to got some call-ups to talk about. We're going to get to those in just a moment. But first, we're going to take a quick break so we can hear from our sponsors on today's show.
This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always have You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts are guaranteed to fit your vehicle every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home the win. Keep your ride or die alive with eBay Motors, or at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit available only to U.S. customers.
Let's continue this episode of Locked On Coyotes, Matthew, as we go through the roster moves that has been going on as the final rosters are due today when everyone is listening. The Coyotes sent down a decent amount of people to Tucson, yes, and also waived some people also, but they also made some call-ups for some interesting reasons. We will get to that in a little bit. But Michael Kesselring and Vladislav Kolyachonok have been recalled from Tucson to the Coyotes. We know why, and let's get to it.
Oh, yeah. So as of right now, we have to exclude Maverick Lamoureux. There's only 5 defensemen for Tucson that have NHL contracts, have Coyotes contracts, which would now put Kesselring, Kolyachonok, Soderstrom, Dermott, Mosier, Valimaki, Stetcher, Brown, Dursey, and Dumba all on the roster, giving us 10 defensemen. But like Craig Morgan reported, Tournier said a couple defensemen were banged up assuming this has something to do with it. Craig Morgan did quote tweet this and add a slight bit of context. It's still a lot of defensemen. They're still carrying too many extra defensemen with exactly 12 forwards. And I would imagine, like, sure, I guess one of these could be a paper transaction. I am still a little surprised that Soderstrom is still technically on the roster because his name was not mentioned in any of these. The other people sent down were Zach Sanford and then Ivan Prosvetov. It was cool to see Prosy hang on as long as he did, but how banged up are they and which players specifically? Because I'm not seeing any of that context.
I know it's not there's no mention of it, and I'm trying to look at it. I have a hard time, I mean, we'll find in due time. They'll probably say something, but it's interesting that again that is a lot of defensemen to have, especially since everyone only really talks about your seventh defenseman, right? Your seventh because your seventh defenseman is your extra guy, because you run with usually 6.
And for context, without these call-ups, they already have 8.
8, exactly.
Because Soderstrom has not officially been sent down, that they have announced.
Yeah, but there's probably a chance that by the time you guys are listening to this, he's already have, or maybe they just don't send him down, and he's part of the opening night roster.
It's just so weird. This is unlike who wasn't playing last night. We can look this up real quick.
This is something that we do have to figure out, though. I have to imagine this because as of right now, outside those columns, I'm looking at cap friendly. Their roster size is full, 23 out of 23. There's going to be 1 or 2 more send-downs. There has to be to make up for the call-ups.
See, so Soderstrom, Valimaki, Dursey, Dumba, Mosier, and Brown. So Stetcher didn't play. Dermott didn't play. I know Dermott was having some injury issues, but he played 2 games earlier in the preseason, didn't he?
I believe so.
Because I don't know how to fact check that.
But there's probably, maybe there's still a chance that Dermott is 100% ready. So they're like, all right, well.
It's so weird unless people also got banged up last night. And
which is a possibility.
It's possible, and I guess I wasn't fully looking for it, but the bench didn't look like it went down at all, and I didn't notice the pairs get messed up. So it's interesting, and I don't fully know what's going on. I wish we'd have a little more context. I wish we'd have hey, such and such is day to day, such and such is week to week. I wish we had just a little bit more information to go on here, and unfortunately, they don't send me the hey Matthew, you want to know what's going on? Travis Dermott, he hurt his toe.
I mean, even then they don't even give us the info. That's just it will just say X player is day to day with an upper body injury,
which means he's missing his head.
I mean, we all know the jokes about upper body, lower body injury. It's hilarious. But we'll definitely have to take a closer look, and we'll probably update everyone on this show as we learn more what's going on. But we know 2 players have been called up, and those 2 players are called up, that's 2 players over the roster limit. So that means 2 players are also due to be sent down either by the morning you guys are listening to this, by immediately before the final rosters due. There's got to be some information. We will get to that. We'll go to get to you when we can. And there is one more thing I want to point out, because I know we're bumping up against the clock here, Matthew. A player that's name that was not mentioned on any call-ups or in terms of or any reassignments or anything. His name is still on the cap friendly and listed as status NHL. Is 3rd goaltender Anson Thornton.
It is interesting because Ingy wasn't the listed backup last night. It was Prosy that was there as just a backup. So I don't know. I've heard literally nothing. I've heard literally nothing on that front, but that is interesting. I would have to imagine that they don't want to send him to Tucson because
Nope.
Villalta is supposed to be the insurance behind Prosy. So what likely is happening? Just logical again. No,
They're finding
one's
a
in my
team to
ear.
loan him to.
Yeah, they're talking to ECHL teams, maybe even one of the independent AHL teams like the Chicago Wolves, and saying, "Hey, do you need a goalie?" And working out a deal with getting Anson Thornton some time.
That would seem to make sense, right?
Yeah, logically. Again, Craig Morgan is not in my ear. Hey, Matt, here's what's going on. I am flying blind here like the rest of you, but that is interesting. I noticed that I didn't see his name on there. I noticed Prosvetov, but they also theoretically they got 12 forwards. Technically, I think it's 11 defensemen and 3 goalies. They would be above the 23 player limit unless someone
Yes.
goes on IR. Because I think IR goes against your cap, but not your roster limit.
Correct. Unless it's LTIR, I believe.
Yeah, LTIR is the only one that doesn't.
That's something we
doesn't
don't
against
want.
Cap. Yeah. But then again, this team has no problems with the cap, so they would literally just, as they've done the entire time, put people on regular IR, and just there you go.
100%. There's definitely going to be a lot of a lot of taking a look, because there has to, we have to figure it all out, and we'll definitely look into everything for you guys as we just take a look, because there's definitely something to be had here.
There's something going on. There's a little something.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts before we close things off?
Thank you, Robin, Locked On, Adrian, and everyone for my one and only opportunity to be credentialed media for hockey.
Oh, you'll be back.
Nope, I'm retiring.
Nope.
This is my last. It's my last day on Locked On. I want to officially announce it. I'm springing it on Robin too.
Nope, Matthew. Like the lyrics in Hotel California, you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
Oh, okay. You want to see me leave? All right, see me leave.
Oh no, okay. He's gone. Anyways, that's gonna be it for today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We are available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on Apple, Google, Spotify, on YouTube, on the SiriusXM radio app, and ad-free on Amazon Music. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, on Twitter, or X as we all know it now.
1X.
At LO_Coyotes. I am personally at Robin_Leonio. Matt Jacobson is at the AZ Sports Guy. Interact with us, ask the question you might have. We might answer right back, or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.